kind of hard-driving nature that Harvey Pinard brings to the Rocket. And I definitely think that Pinard is that hometown kid that everyone can root for, that Laval's been looking for. And he definitely came out of the grapevine in terms of being kind of a player who came out of left field, definitely very unknown at the time coming out of the QMJHL. But yeah, I definitely think that he is that kind of Brendan Gallagher type for the Rocket, and he's somebody that everyone can kind of build around and root for, especially the younger players. In my own mind, I think Alex Belzil is definitely more of that Brendan Gallagher type for the Rocket, as he's our heart and soul in many ways. But for a lot of the prospects who are coming into Laval this season, having come out of the QMJHL, I think Pinard is a guy they can look up to and be like, huh, if this guy can do this in Laval, maybe I can too.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, maybe if we're going to rewind a little bit, you mentioned last season, being a successful one and under the reins of Joël Bouchard, who is no longer here. And we did a quick notes, I think, in the second episode with the hiring of Jean-François Hull, Martin Laperrière, Kelly Buckberger, Marco Marciano keeping his goaltending coaching duties. It's hard to predict anything when you have new coaches coming in, especially those that haven't have that much experience in that particular league. But in accordance to what you're seeing on your end, I mean, are we going to see that much of a difference between Joël Bouchard and Jean-François Hull, or is it a completely different other style? I mean, I'm sure you've made a ton of research on this as well from your end. So, I mean, what have you dug up on Hull?
Jean-François Hull is a very experienced coach at a lot of different levels. He was an assistant of Clarkson University in the ECAC for a number of years. He was a head coach in the QMJHL for a number of different teams. He was a head coach in the ECHL for one season, and for the past, well, since 2015-16, he's been an assistant coach in the AHL, the Bakersfield Condors. So he does have experience as a coach, but Joel Bouchard was a very different story. And in many ways, he was a player he was a coach that divided a lot of players on Laval. While I personally loved his coaching style, definitely he wasn't for everybody. And there's some players who have come out and said, I flat out just didn't like his coaching style at all. Guys like Dale Weiss publicly came out and stated how much they had of their disdain for Bouchard. But then again, that ties into how Bouchard is as a coach. He rewards guys who work hard and just come and bring the same thing to the ice every single night. And Dale Weiss, being a player who was playing off a $2 million deal and obviously didn't want to play in the AHL, probably didn't work that hard, which probably could explain why Bouchard didn't like him and why Bouchard didn't give him enough ice time. Now, Hull, I definitely think will be more of a player's coach as compared to what Bouchard was. And I definitely think he'll be more, understanding and kind of have a more down-to-earth aspect as compared to Bouchard, kind of like how Larry Robinson was with the New Jersey Devils. But then again, I think Kelly Buckberger will make up for that, as Buckberger is known as being one of the toughest players in the NHL during his playing career, and he definitely carries over those same values as a head coach. So, yeah, I definitely think that Laval, I'm excited to see what Laval's new coaching staff brings, and I hope that they can build on what Joe Bouchard did, rather than just completely gutting everything he built that team up to be and just kind of build starting from scratch. I definitely think there's a groundwork that Bouchard has laid that I definitely think Hull can capitalize on and really take the Rockets to new heights.
We also maybe should take a quick mention with the goaltending situation in Laval. I mean, it's pretty obvious on paper, at least, that Caden Primo is going to be leading the team and probably getting the bulk of the starts and everything. But again, you got Michael McNiven, who had that, I guess we'll call it a contract dispute. I don't know how we'll qualify it. But, I mean, what does it look like on the goaltending front for the Rocket? I mean, is it just going to be the Caden Primo show, or is it going to, or should we expect maybe a higher rotation?
I think House Jim Mark Bergevin has done a really good job of promoting competition in the Rocket net, and he's done that with just by adding one player in Kevin Poulin. Poulin is a player that most people have probably brushed off to the side as kind of a random signing, a guy who's just there to fill the roster. But Poulin brings a lot to the table, and he's had a really, really long and very depth-filled pro career. He's played for a number of different teams. He's been all over the map, and he definitely has that experience that the Rocket are looking for in their goal. And keep in mind, he also has the most NHL experience out of any goaltender on the Rockets crease. He played 50 games, and he was also a brief backup with the New York Islanders in 2013-14. While he's bounced around a ton over these past few seasons, going from the KHL to the Swiss A-League to the AHL to even the LNAH for a brief period, I definitely think he'll be coming to Laval hungry and looking to prove himself at the AHL level, kind of like how has been the case with a number of AHL players over the last little while. Some people might remember Rob Shrimp's brief tenure with the Portland Pirates in 2015-16. And yeah, he had one really good season with the Portland Pirates, and he kind of proved himself at the AHL level. And I definitely think that's what Poulet's going to be looking to do too. Now, keep in mind, Michael McNiven went to arbitration with the Canadiens, so it's obvious that he wants to get more playing time in Laval, and he wants to see an increased role there. And I definitely think he'll be given a chance to do that. Still, I definitely think that bringing Poulet in will promote some healthy competition, which I think is just the thing that McNiven needs to really bring his game up to the next level.
I totally agree with the case of Kevin Poulet. I mean, the fact that he's bounced around, like you said, he's been in the Swedish league, the American league, the German league. He even went playing Austria. Yeah, and then the KHL for that matter. I think as a 31-year-old, I'm pretty sure that Mark Bergevin probably he saw right through it, and he said, you know what, in the event that Jake Allen or Carey Price is injured, we're going to need to call somebody up. Maybe having a guy like Poulet, if he can really throw himself in there, prove that he can make an impact on the AHL level, maybe he'll be the first one called up instead of Caden Primo, because we've seen shades of brilliance from Primo in his brief NHL stint, but it's obvious that he's not ready for big time hockey. Am I right?
I mean, I definitely think that not Poulet. I definitely think that Caden Primo had a bit of a struggle last season with the Canadiens, and he definitely resembled Andre Rasko or Red Light Rasko in a lot of ways of his penchant for letting in some soft goals.
Ouch.
It definitely reminds me of it definitely reminds me of how Ante Niemi was in his final season in Montreal, where somebody would fire a shot from outside the blue line and he'd barely make the save and he'd almost let that puck in.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just something that comes with experience. And I definitely think Caden Primo has a lot of potential, but it's just something that he hasn't yet to fully realize because he just needs more workload and he just needs more time to develop. Remember, he was a 7th-round pick, even though he did win the Mike Richter Award as the NCAA's top goaltender. He was a 7th-round pick for a reason, and I definitely think he'll need some more time in Laval. And in my own opinion, I definitely think he should be given the keys to Laval's crease for the time being and be given a chance to really prove himself as a minute muncher in the AHL. For a brief time, everyone thought that Charlie Lindgren would be that big minute muncher, but as we come to find out, that didn't work out as Lindgren is now with the St. Louis Blues. But I definitely think that Primo is poised to have that's the same kind of season that Lindgren had in his first season with the St. John's Ice Caps, where he led them to the AHL playoffs and almost led them to a first-round upset over the first place Syracuse Crunch in the qualifying rounds. So yeah, I definitely think that Primo has a lot of potential, and while he's not quite NHL ready just yet, the Canadiens have Carey Price and Jake Allen back there, so I think he'll be fine in Laval.
So how about we just, we've covered everything but the defensemen. So how about we just talk about the blue line real quickly? I think it's going to be pretty obvious that Caden Gooley should see a lot of minutes in Laval, especially with a very high ceiling that he has. I wouldn't pass him to maybe we're going to see a little bit more of guys like Josh Brook, for example, who's, he's been knocking at that ceiling and maybe trying to break that glass ceiling once and for all and actually maybe make it to the NHL someday. But what do you think? I mean, like aside from Gooley, who obviously is probably going to be in the top 2 defensemen, is there anyone else who seems to stand out on the blue line?
The Laval Rocket have definitely had a penchant for having, like the Canadiens, a very solid defensive core. That's not really stands out in many ways, but they're just guys who are very dependable and very reliable. Gustav Olsen has obviously always been a reliable player for the Canadiens. I'm not quite sure if he is still on the roster today, but should he be, I definitely expect him to continue to serve as a sort of talented option. Same thing goes for Toby Bisson, who was a very talented defensive option for the Rocket last season and is like Raphael Harvey-Bernard and Joel Teasdale. He was more of a sort of lower rated option, but he's definitely proved himself with a plus 13 rating over 28 games this past season. The main thing that the Rocket are going to have to watch out for is the departure of Otto Leskinen. Most people didn't really respect, or not respect, but Leskinen was just kind of thrown to the wayside by most.
No, he was definitely a little underappreciated, right?
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was really something that he was deserving of. He played really well when the Canes gave him a chance, and he was also an AHL All-Star this past season. But he's chose to take his services elsewhere, and he's going to join a very, very talented Joker Helsinki team in the KHL. And in my own mind, I hope that Leskinen can become the 20-goal guy he never was here in Laval in the KHL and maybe see an NHL contract down the line. Now, with that in mind, I definitely think that Caden Gooley will be able to hopefully replace what Leskinen brought to the lineup. And even leading on from that, I hope that Xavier Ouellette can rediscover his offensive touch, which really disappeared last season in Laval as he kind of bounced between the Canadiens roster on and off. So I definitely think that the Rocket have a lot to look forward to in terms of their defense. Not to mention some of the guys that they have coming in off their AHL contracts, like Chris Neal, who is a Concordia University defenseman, who did sign to an AHL deal and was an incredibly talented offensive defenseman at Concordia, being a point per game player in every season there. So I definitely think the Rocket have a lot to look forward to on defense. It's just going to be a question of who's going to fit in where and who's going to be able to be a solid, reliable player night in and night out.
Final 60 seconds, Scott. Your predictions. Where are they going to land in the standings? And, well, are they going to go far in the playoffs? Your prediction for next season.
Canadian division title again. I'm gonna be a very bold claim right there.
Oh yeah,
Rocket
let's do it.
Have what it takes to get that Canadian division title once more. Even if the departure of a lot of their offensive players, I'm really looking forward to the future of AHL hockey in Montreal. And the Rocket are finally where the Canadians want them to be, a talented, competitive AHL team.
Yeah,
it brings me back to the days of Duncan Milroy and Corey Locke and AJ Baines and Maxime Lapierre and the old Hamilton Bulldogs. And I'm definitely looking forward to not only going to see Rocket games in person once more, but seeing just what they can bring to the table night in and night out. So in my own opinion, I think sky's the limit for the Laval Rocket at this moment.
Hey, Scott, I really appreciate the time you're taking in order to review the Rocket. How about we do this again next week? We'll cover the Trois-Rivières-Lyon next time. What do you think?
Sounds good, Patrick. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks a bunch. All right. And once again, thank you very much, Scott. Now, Sebastian, I know you've been waiting a while for this. I mean, we've talked about wanting to talk about this young man for a couple of episodes now, I would say. It is now finally time to speak a little bit more in details about Sean Farrell. And I think at the same time, it's important to notice that the USHL program is going through an outstanding growth. I mean, if you look at just the Canadians alone, you know, we're looking at, of course, the Sean Farrell having that ridiculous season that he's had this past season. You know, the rise of Cole Caulfield, and also, like, let's not forget that, you know, Caden Primo, Jacob Dobbs, Luke Tuck also hails from this program. First of all, let's talk about Sean Farrell, Sebastian. Like, you are the big expert when it comes to the younger prospects. So go ahead. What's your take on Sean Farrell?
I've really been looking forward to talking about him. He is one of my favorite prospects in the Habs system. In the 2020 draft, which was the first draft I was really covering in depth, he was my 32nd or 33rd ranked prospect overall. So I had him on the fringes of the first round, and Montreal got him with the final selection of the fourth round. So it's the only draft pick apart from Cole Caulfield where I audibly cheered. I was really excited when they got him because he is, I've been saying this a lot about Habs prospects, but he's a lot of fun to watch. He's great. So in his draft year, he was playing on a powerhouse Chicago Steel team with Brennan Brisson and Sam Colangelo, both of whom went in like the top 40 picks of the 2020 draft. And yet Sean Farrell fell to the end of the fourth round. He is a player that had quite a few flaws in his draft year. But the one thing he always had was being a borderline elite playmaker. And I don't really have any issues saying that. The only question I had is if it's borderline or actually elite. His playmaking ability is phenomenal. He can thread the needle. When I was watching him going into his draft year, there are passes that he completed tape to tape that I didn't even see were available. He is just so skilled. But the issues in his draft year were the fact that his wrist shot was kind of fluky. He had like flashes of a really good one-timer, which he used a lot last season, which was wonderful. But his wrist shot was hit or miss, and his skating was an issue. But there was already the foundation of a tenacious and great playmaker right there. And then this season, he was meant to actually go to Harvard, and he probably would have been playing in a depth role had he gone. But instead, because Ivy League didn't play this season, he went back to the Chicago Steel and was part of an even more superstar team. Basically, they were dominant. He was playing in the same forward core as 14th overall selection Matthew Coronato, and as well as Mackie Samoskevich, who was a Florida Panthers first-round draft pick this season. And despite that, him playing with 2 first-round picks this season, there was never a doubt that he was the best player in the USHL this year. He was phenomenal. He put up 101 points in 53 games. It's only the second time in USHL history that a player put up over 100 points. And he also almost doubled his goal tally from the previous season, which went from 15 to 29. And it's because he really put in a lot of work for his shot. Like, his shot was so much improved. His one-timer is now a legitimate weapon, which is really helping his power play performance. Like, I would think of Jonathan Drouin. Like, on the power play, he is only a passing threat, right? And it makes him predictable, which makes him less of a threat on the power play. But because Sean Farrell added the scoring dimension to his game, he